All right, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to the Companions for Change podcast. We have brother Ubaydullah Evans here, all the way from Chicago.
MashaAllah, very happy to be here. Comfortable, man. Whenever someone asks me about a flight, I say it took off and it landed.
That's all that matters.
You know?
Yeah. And then we have all the way from South Los Angeles, Imam Jihad Saafir, president, founder, Islah Los Angeles. Give a wave to the cameras. You wave and smile.
Use chambers.
You know, when someone's out there at home feeling very happy, you waved at them. They feel like, he waved at me. We got brother Ustad Tabari Zahir, all the way from Riverside. What's your title? Lamps of Light, right? Lamps of Light. Founder and director, Lamps of Light. So we got a lot of great people in the room doing interesting things, doing stuff in the community. But we're going to start off with Ubaydullah, all the way from Chicago.
Yes, sir.
What is your story? I've heard, many things. And by the way, I'll tell you a little bit of how I heard about you. I heard about you first, I mentioned at the Alim course, but I was really interested because you brought this little video about fashion. And I was like, this is incredible. Someone who tied in fashion and spirituality together. And that's how I first found out about you. I have, a fashion person to look up to in the Muslim community.
Well, my story. I embraced Islam at 16.
Mm-hmm. I'm 16.
I'm at 16. I'm actually from Chicago. I'm from an area called University Park. Mm-hmm. And my grandmother lived on the east side of the city. Mm-hmm. And some of my initial exposure to Islam was through street organizations. Mm-hmm. That Muslims might find it quite surprising that some of these organizations had Islamic themes in their organizational documents, in their literature and founding documents. I embraced Islam, as a result of that influence and some of the influence of hip hop, definitely the influence of Malcolm X. I found myself at 20 desiring to gain a deeper understanding of the religion. So I enrolled at IIE, which is the Institute of Islamic Education, which is in Elgin, Illinois, about 35 minutes outside of Chicago. Yeah. I was a boarding student there for 2 years. I did Quranic memorization and I learned Arabic and some of the Islamic sciences. Because I wanted more Arabic immersion, I ended up relocating to Yemen. Oh, wow. I spent about 6.5, 7 months in Tarim, Yemen.
How was that journey? You just decided Yemen? How did you decide Yemen?
Man, we were actually at the ISNA convention in DC and Habib Ali Jifri was there. And there was something about him that was very striking. There was something about the way he spoke. He would give these khatirat, like this khawatir after the dawn prayer, these short kind of motivational talks after the dawn prayer. And there was something about his manner and something about the way he presented, and also something about the way the translators who were translating for him, who I later learned were Abdul Karim Yahya and Yahya Rodis. They seemed so in sync. Yeah. It was amazing. It was really unlike any, and they weren't translating, they were interpreting. But it was like when he would become emotional, they would become emotional. Yeah. And I still remember thinking, man, they have some correlation, some very deep relationship. And I met some brothers who were coming from Damascus. They had studied in Damascus, and they recommended that I go to Yemen to spend time there. I did go to Yemen, but right before I left, we learned that my wife was pregnant with our first child. And she actually, Allah yarhamuha, gave me license to go begin this, process of studying Islam abroad. And she stayed with her family in Denver, Colorado. I came back just in time for my daughter's birth. And then when I started reconsidering where to re-engage my Islamic education, I ended up choosing Egypt because I felt like it was, a little more, Yemen was very rural. Yeah. It was very, everything there was about the course of study. Yeah. Whereas in Egypt, I felt like she could still kind of lead a semi-normal
Life, yeah.
life, and so we ended up choosing Cairo, and I ended up enrolling at Azhar. I graduated from Azhar in 2012. My area of focus was Sharia, with a particular focus on the Maliki school. Upon graduation, I returned to the States, and I was offered a position as the resident scholar at the American Learning Institute for Muslims.
Yeah.
And that's the work that I've been doing for about the last 12 years. But I think especially, there is this connection with Sahaba initiative. I'm always engaged with Iman, the Inner City Muslim Action Network.
Wow.
Rami Nashishibi, Shamar Hemphill, Ali Bilal, Jose Acevedo, more recently.
Shamar.
Yeah,
How's he doing?
Alhamdulillah, that's my brother. Shamar and I have known each other since we were 12.
Wow.
11 or 12. And we still talk almost every day.
Wow.
I love it, bro. And to have a friend, how was that?
He said we could call him.
To have a friend that has seen you through so many transitional phases, in your life. There's something very affirming about that. But he's well, mashallah. And worked with Iman, still work with Iman.
Yeah.
And this weekend I'm in Inland Empire, man, hanging out with the brothers from Sahaba Initiative.
I know.
And that's the whole story.
I know. Imam Jihad's over things like, man, I wish I could have just went to Yemen, went to Egypt for a few years.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. No, it's a blessing. I think, for the, I've always benefited from the brothers who have went and came back. But alhamdulillah, everybody has their separate path. And alhamdulillah, I think, we have to cross paths and, we come together with these beneficial experiences that, make our engagement that much more fruitful.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. I like the way you say that, bro.
Well, one of the things that we need imams for, everyone wonders, what do we need shiuch, what do we need scholars for, is to really bring theology and spirituality back into the mundane, the regular life that we're living. Otherwise we could just be Sahaba Initiative that just does community work from a completely secular perspective. But the challenge is to hold on to our faith, because this is one generation. Another generation could come and everything becomes secular, right? You have many organizations in the United States that have secularized and functioned and grown and all that. So when you came back from Egypt and you think about theology and spirituality and the world, how do you even think about reviving that amongst people and getting that, making it really be a big part of their life?
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. I think you have to remember that this core Quranic kind of principle, لَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي Adam, that we have given all of the children of Adam an inherent dignity.
Yeah.
So for us, the value of human beings is divine fiat. It's something that God just gives human beings.
Yeah.
And although that value can be enhanced through worship, through knowledge, through acts that, heighten our dignity, it can never be fully removed. And I think that, our approach to serving people is not a utilitarian approach. It's not like, we only do this if there's some kind of worldly tangible benefit, if there's some kind of political aim. Now Muslims, I think, are becoming a little more politically savvy, and it's like, well, the publicity that we get from this and the fact that our community is known for helping people, and no, we do this because we see human beings as being valuable. And I think that that is a dogmatic, that's a theological perspective.
Yeah.
A lot of people forget that the idea of like human rights, that's a dogma. If a person was purely materialist, you don't have to see human beings as having any inherent value. But that's a religious idea that no, human beings have value. And I think it's important for Muslims to begin their work from that place.
That perspective.
Yeah.
So
Tell me what you over there? I'm not letting you off the hook, man. What you think, Shiv?
No, I mean, you summarized it very beautifully, mashallah. I would say, I think the time that we're living in, it's absent. that this is like one of the defining characteristics of my cook Bazz. I always try to come from a spiritual angle. I mean, there's different angles you can come from.
Yeah.
But I always try to come from a spiritual angle because I believe that it's the time that we're living in, right? Adab is being lost. Spirituality is being lost. And when I say adab, what's wrong with Allah?
No.
And with Rasulullah. It is being lost. And so, we have to remind people about that. We have to remind them about that. So, yeah, I agree with you. We have to.
Well, how do you navigate that as a chaplain on a Muslim student on UCLA campus and other campuses? You have students that perhaps are finding their faith for the very first time, and they're, trying to make the most of their experience. How do you give them enough so they can have something to take on for? Perhaps it's the most they're going to engage with the Muslim chaplain forever in their life.
You got to meet everybody where they're at, right? And so. Like if you look at the books of Tazkiyah, right, they give you these stages.
Yeah.
Right? And everything starts at Tawbah. Everything starts at Tawbah. Right? And then you have some people, you have to kind of encourage them to be a little bit more grateful. It's a little bit higher up the scale. Some people they have to work on different things.
Yeah.
But, what you'll find is that most of us, we're just trying to just keep this transaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's just like, I messed up. I messed up again. I messed up again. And so it's like, keep going back. Keep going back. Master that station of Tawbah. And you'll be surprised, man, people fall into despair.
Yeah.
Because they're just like, I just can't do it. And I'm just, if you don't think that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can change you in 2 rakats, you have a bad opinion about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
No.
And so keep going back.
I'm just thinking that, we thrust into this huge world of, ideas and, we're talking about these, these lofty ideas, whether it's politics or even, overcoming, the defective aspect of the world.
Yeah.
And we haven't looked inward, and perhaps that has been a distraction from us looking inward. I think that's the issue, even with the, the Muslim community right now and other communities, is that these things become a distraction from a person really looking inward and dealing with their own ideas. I mean, we're addressing issues that are dealing with the world on the world stage, and our houses may be in shambles, and these huge issues, whether it's politics or other things, dealing with legislation, when legislation in our own households
is all over. That's an interesting point, because right now we, as somebody who, I guess it's not too long ago since I graduated college.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Timeline compared to you guys, no offense, but and one of the more popular approach. Yeah, exactly.
Is he the Dr. Bash?
No, it's not the Dr. Bash. One of the things that you grapple with is obviously liberalism is pretty popular. You have this idea that you have to find somebody to blame, right? And this is like parts and parcel of like social justice movements and things like that. And you're put in a situation where a young college student or whatever, and you're pushed into one direction. It's like, hey, we got to blame the system, blame the man. We got to find something like that. But when you continuously do that, you can only blame so far until you burn out and, there's nobody else left to blame but yourself. How do you get people to do the balance of the both, right? It's been really hard to get people thinking that, hey, we got to address our own issues simultaneously. We're trying to change the system rather than just, going out there.
Yeah, and I think, something that someone said to me once, and it resonated. If I don't have any responsibility, I don't have any possibility. Right? I can't wait for the world to change because maybe it won't. You understand?
Yeah.
Now, it is my responsibility to advocate for justice and to speak out against injustice.
Yeah.
But we have to be very careful about thinking that any of our problems ultimately rest in the creation. You know, there was a great classical scholar named Ibn Ata'illah, and he said, anybody who thinks that their problems ultimately originate with any created being is like a dog that somebody hits with a brick and the dog goes and bites the brick. Right? No, it's not the brick.
Yeah.
Right? It was the person that threw the brick. And so spirituality, I think it helps to, on the one hand, it helps to keep our spirits buoyed.
Yeah.
Helps to keep our spirits buoyant. And on the other, and I don't want this to be taken out of context. Let me look into the camera. I don't want this to be taken out of context, right? We actually believe that the dunya is a tragic place. That doesn't mean that there's no joy in the dunya. That doesn't mean that there's no joy. It doesn't mean there's no beauty in the dunya. But this is not our ultimate abode. A dunya mal'una. The dunya is a cursed place. So when we see injustice, when we see a lack of equity, when we see unfairness, for us, yes, we know we have to speak out against those things, but it's also a confirmation of what God said about this is the dunya, man. This isn't a place of perfection or ultimate justice or, you know, ultimate love or fairness or any of those ideals.
You know, one of the challenges that we as Muslim community all across the world are facing is that, you know, we've obviously, many Muslim countries have been colonized and went through all the different struggles and different things like that. And now we're in this space where we don't have enough institutions. We don't have institutions of higher learning. We don't have any Muslim universities. You got Al-Azhar, maybe in Riyadh and a couple of places. Some things are reviving here, but there's this gigantic breakdown that took place globally when it comes to Muslim education. And on top of that, you have lack of institutional power. But yet we are the majority of the world. We have leadership in over 50 countries. And one of the questions that you commonly people ask is like, what are we doing wrong? Like, we have all these people that are Muslim. We got all this stuff here. We got resources, but yet we haven't built power to an extent. We also have not built institutions, and we have not built our communities strong enough to withstand the pressures of the outside world.
That's an easy one. That's easy. Imam Jihad Saafir, man. That's easy.
Look at us right here. We've been able to gather. You know, I think too many times we're focused on our weaknesses. You know, we don't look to our strengths. You know, where we just came from. The gathering that you all just had. The organization which you all have built here. Alhamdulillah. I think we many times we overlook celebrating our victories. You know, because we all. And then when we go through the moments of pain, we bathe in it. You know, I mean, the reality of this life, we're going to have our trials. A lot, ultimately, because of the trials that we go through, you know, we're not supposed to just fall completely in love with this life. So there's going to be trial because, you know, we're passing through. However, we should have love for this life. We should love these moments right here. We should love what you all have been able to accomplish. I think we got to celebrate our victories and stop talking.
Well, would you say that the Muslims have become so focused on Jannah that we're like, yeah, let's just get through this and then we'll get to Jannah?
Yeah, but there are. See, this is, how do we balance it? You know, because Alam naj'ali al-arda mihadan. You know, Allah made this like a pillar. There's some beautiful moments that you have in this life. وَمَا الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. You know, this, you know, it's a lot of deception here. But on the other hand, right, we have, we're told to love each other, the brotherhood and sisterhood. We love the Sunnah. There's a lot of aspects of this life that we should love, you know. However, the difference is that, you know, we love Allah and we believe in His promise, and that outweighs the love that we that we have. So while we're here to celebrate our victories, be patient, and essentially racking up the buttercup during your patience in this life.
No, I'm gonna hit on something, and you probably are gonna be surprised to hear this. That perspective that you just offered is a characteristically Black American perspective, because we have always had to find joy in being less than, having socioeconomic betters. We've always had to have that acute sensitivity to those aspects of life, your laughter, your time with your family, because mainstream means of validation, like money, power, political influence. We've often been cut off from those, right? Cultures where people have enjoyed those things traditionally, they respond to the catastrophe of defeat much differently. And you can see that in kind of the Muslims of the majority Muslim world. They are having a collective identity crisis because they are experiencing, some of them for the first time, and I mean civilizationally for the first time, being behind the West, being the heel of the West, being manipulated, taken advantage of, exploited by the West. And I really think this has led to almost this collective tailspin. Muslims figuring out, who are we? Right? Who are we in relation to them? Should we want what they have? Should we want something other than what they have?
No.
And so I find that this is just a very difficult time for Muslims. Now, if you have, and for me, this thing that I associate with Black people, this is a worldview. This is a hermeneutic. This is what, if somebody can have all of those things at their disposal, I have none of them, but my life is all right. It's okay. It's all right. But that's something we got that in our milk. That's something we have, and it's a deep thing that we have. Oh, it don't bother me.
Key feature of the deen.
Yeah.
For us.
Yeah. Hey, look, mind over matter. If I don't mind, it don't matter.
Listen,
If I don't mind, it don't matter.
new name, got this new Jama'at, then they get him a kufi and a thong.
And if you talk to him, and say, but what about the prospects of upward mobility? Who? What?
That's a deeper question.
I'm really not that concerned about those things. But civilizations that have, and I guess juxtaposed to, and I know this is a stereotype, and I don't want to indulge it too much, but look at the way that we used to talk about white Americans. I don't think it's entirely true, but we used to talk about them as being what? Very fragile. That a guy loses his job, he jump off a bridge. God, something's going wrong in the world, and because he's unaccustomed to that kind of discomfort.
Right.
Even this emergence of Donald Trump. I know this ain't supposed to be a political podcast, you know what I'm saying? But this idea, like, make America great again.
Yeah.
This is saying, if you are experiencing wage slippage, if you now have an opioid epidemic, if you now are experiencing the downsizing of American corporations, we got to do something to make America great again. Here. If this is happening to Black people, it's status quo. Status quo. There's no movement that we have to. That's that status quo.
So since you brought up Trump, and again, this is not political, but there is a deeper. Oh man, I really wish I could say what I want to say, but there's a deeper conversation that's taking place right now about the divide between, let's say, the immigrant community and the African American community as a whole. And this is taking place. Well, many external pressures.
As we going there,
one of them.
He's a nice guy, but he's not scared. He's a nice guy, but he's not scared.
So politics play the roles. You got pundits from the outside, and you got internal pressures within our own community that are consistently dividing us. Now, people will understand how to push these buttons, right, on our community, but how do we reverse those buttons? How can we refocus our attention, understand that we got to build with one another, even though there's immense pain that's happening in many communities at the same time, simultaneously, right? You have multiple struggles that people are going through. And, there's always this thing, we call it oppression Olympics. You're sort of competing, one oppression matters more than the other. How do you even navigate this?
Tabari, we ain't heard from you in a minute. Jump back in. We jump back in and say, you ain't chilling. You on assignment tonight. Jump back in. Get back in.
I mean, everything that you mentioned, it's always been there, right? There's always been this divide for different reasons. I mean, I don't always think it was like race. Sometimes it's class.
Yeah.
And I, very quickly, I would say that, if you want to tackle it, I would say start with the youth, right? Like, I would say start with the youth, because the youth are maybe like the second generation, the third generation. They're closer to the problem. They're closer to, they better understand via popular culture. They understand the issues better than their parents. They're closer. They're mentors, if you would say, people that they look up to in popular culture, have these expressions of, social justice and whatnot, whereas their parents didn't.
No.
And I think that's probably where you have to begin to work.
Yeah.
We have to work with everybody. We have to work with everybody. But there has to be somebody who's bringing light, to both sides. And so that's, very quickly, that's what I see, and that's what I would say.
Bismillah, I think that some humility is required, on all sides. I think the expectation that Muslims that have always been aloof when it comes to social issues that, impact Black people. For instance, the expectation that I would be passionate in my advocacy for Philistine. I think one can reasonably expect that because we're all Muslim. Right? But we could have expected you to be more interested in ex-offender reentry. We should have expected you to be more interested in, the maldistribution of wealth in our communities. We could have expected you to be more interested in institutional development within our communities. So I think everybody has to have some humility. But even, I think, for me as, a Black American Muslim, I lived in Egypt. And I was in Egypt around the time of the Arab Spring. I was there. I was there. And I still remember leaving my house, going to Meydan Tahrir, where many of the protests were taking place. Somebody shot like a canister of some kind of agent into the crowd, and it made everybody itch, and it was crazy. And I went back to my house, and I remember calling a friend of mine, thinking to myself, damn. I'm here for 5 years. No, I'm here for 5 years. My wife passed away in my 3rd year at Azhar. May Allah have mercy on her. My first wife is buried in Egypt. So I had given a lot personally to, finish this degree, to achieve this personal milestone of graduating from Azhar. I get 2 exams from graduating, and now Egyptians want Suqut al-Nizam. Now they want to overthrow the system. Man, I say, I was upset. You would have thought I was a Mubarak loyalist, man. I was in that, man. Just put the man back in his place so we can get up there. I don't care about all this you're talking about. And I still remember one of my roommates, he said to me, these people have been suffering under the yoke of oppression for 30 years. They are finally asserting their sovereignty as a people. And all you can think about is your degree. That's all you think. That's all you see in this, is that this is frustrating your attempt to get your degree. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be an immigrant. I'm not connected to all that. I don't, hey man, look, yeah, we brothers. Yeah, I'm Muslim too, but I don't, hey, I'm here to do this. And then I'm going back to where I came from. And I said to myself, this is how a lot of Muslim immigrants came to the United States. Just like I was. Police brutality.
Yeah.
War on drugs. But we came here to work, make money, be compensated for our labor, our skills, take care of our families. We don't know nothing about that. I'm not here for that. And so I can even approach them and say, I understand. Because I had that experience. I understand. But all of us now have a chance to rectify those past actions and show the concern for each other that we should show.
It's amazing how committed you guys are. You went to Egypt, Tabari went to Pakistan. I'm like, man, you guys just went to these random countries. Yeah, Tabari's half Pakistan. It's amazing because I'm like, I actually, to this day, I'm actually not as comfortable to go to Egypt, for example, because I'm like, it's too intense, right? There's a lot going on there, but Pakistan's another intense country, yeah.
I mean, this was 98,
Yeah.
This was before all the 9/11.
So Pakistan's intense just for anybody. So you landed in Pakistan, and then what? You took a rickshaw? What did you do?
No. The people that we went over there with, they had everything set up.
Okay.
So they meet you at the airport, and they take you to where you're gonna be. You know what I mean? You have mentors and stuff like that. Reading the same.
Did you feel at home?
No, it was very different. I mean, I have been to Mexico before. I spent some time down there, and so I understood like third world living.
Yeah.
But this was everybody was Muslim, so it's a little bit different. But I never like really, whatever. We're on film. It was just
Making you comfortable.
I appreciate it.
Softening them up. Softening them up.
When I went, but it was okay. So let me say this: this was the first time that I actually really, really saw like Islamic spirituality.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it?
Because the brother who was assigned to me. I mean, like this was the first time I saw somebody get up more than once for tahajjud. Now I'm coming from the inner city.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was never consistent with tahajjud.
Yeah.
So to just come and this person's lifestyle.
Yeah.
And he's going to every morning. He's going to Fajr to the masjid.
Yeah.
Every evening he's going for it. This was, what I mean, and he used to tell me, Tabari, read as much Quran as you can. Read as much Quran as you can. And then he told me, like some of his like different spiritual experiences. You know what I mean? So this was like the first time that I was like, you know what I mean? And I didn't really feel my growth until I came back.
Allahu Akbar.
Bless you. Was like, this place is messed up.
So was it the habits, building all these habits that you were there? You do spiritual habits. And...
You know what I mean? It was hard, man. It was hard. I'm not.
How about the food? How'd you handle the food?
No, I used to love going to the Tabligh Jamaat and the food and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I already knew what that was like. The food was good. That wasn't the problem. And there were some things I didn't appreciate, like the music, some of the architecture and stuff. I didn't get it.
Couldn't connect with it.
I didn't get it. But when I went to Morocco, it was like, oh, wow. You know what I mean? And Turkey too. In Turkey, I was like, Turkey reminded me of the perfect blend between like Muslim and Western culture. You have like the Hagia Sophia right here, right next to these modern buildings.
Yeah.
It's like this perfect blend, and so yeah. It's you have to travel. I didn't really know myself until I traveled, and then I could contrast. Like, why do they do this? Oh, it actually makes sense. You know, before I'll give you an example,
Right.
and then I'll give you back to mine.
Yeah.
You know, in Pakistan, they, you know, after Jumu'ah, they do like Salawat and then Nabi
Yeah.
in their own style and everything like that. And then when I went to Morocco, I saw that it was totally different,
Yeah.
but it was the same thing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like in Morocco, they say,
Yeah.
they have this way of saying it, you know? And so it was like, I began to understand like how the culture adapted the importance
Uh-huh.
of responding to the call in the Quran.
Yeah.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. You know, so there was like some things that just was like, oh wow, and we don't, as Americans, we don't have something like that yet.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was like things like that would bring things together for me and know that we had a lot more work to do.
There's a thought or an idea that, you know, poverty in America is very different to poverty in other parts of the world. And there's almost a level of dignity perhaps in poverty in other countries. People that are very poor, this is part of their routine. They would go to attend Quran recitation, they would attend Isha prayer, they'd be part of the Muslim community, they would do other things, but they're very impoverished. But spirituality gave them a level of dignity in ways that perhaps every other resource in the world couldn't, because they found new meaning in their life. When you think about poverty in the United States, it's very different, right? Poverty in the United States is very much tied to perhaps social failing, addiction, a lack of family structure and things. In other countries, extremely poor, but family structure is still there. There's, you know, there's dignity is still intact. What is it that's missing here in the United States when it comes to, you know, that dignifying poverty rather than just focus on social mobility?
The inheritance of Black people from slavery is poverty. So that poverty is a very specific kind of poverty, and it carries with it a social stigma. It's not simply that, you know, my family is without resources.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens to people everywhere, all over the world. It's that, you know, we have been, you know, members of communities that, you know, view us individually and collectively with great contempt. And poverty becomes just another pretext to view people with that contempt. And I think that, you know, it must be because of laziness.
Yeah.
It must be because of laziness. It must be because of drug addiction.
Yeah.
It must be because of, you know, what they say, because they like ball players and rappers more than business people. I was reading something Ta-Nehisi Coates said. He said, what 12-year-old wants to emulate a business person? All 12-year-olds want to emulate entertainers and athletes.
Yeah.
It's never held as an indictment or some reason that they're poor.
Yeah.
Only when the subject of the conversation is African American
Yeah.
does this become a rationale. Oh, you know, because all of this is trying to justify the obvious.
Yeah.
But these are people that have been failed by the social safety net. They've been failed. Now, I'm not absolving people of individual responsibility. Right? That's not what I'm saying. You know, I know somebody's got a Thomas Sowell quote ready. Ubaydullah bin Hamid Ali got the quote ready. They're locked and loaded. I'm not absolved. By the way, that's my friend. Alhamdulillah.
You know, he texted me the other night, like 1 a.m. I don't even know if I want to include. He texted me. He's like, JD Vance looks like you. And he sent me a picture of JD Vance. I was like, did anyone tell you that? Look at this.
I only texted him back, mate told me. Mate told me for that statement. Never compare me to that guy.
He sent me the picture. He's not the only one to send it to me. It was just funny that he sent it to me at 1 a.m.
No, but I mean, but I think that Abdullah represents a very important tradition among American social commentators and among Black American social commentators.
Yeah.
One that, again, as we were talking about, I see personal responsibility.
Yeah.
And that gives people possibility. But we can't absolve people of clear, inequity, malfeasance, dereliction of duty. And we've seen that.
I do like his points when he comes out and he tells us that don't fall for the trap. Because a lot of people, they fall for popular movements, popular ideas and stuff. And he rightfully critiques them. So we don't just kind of just jump from one thing to the next, which is always like, he's always been a realist in that way. And very few people are comfortable enough to say the unpopular thing at a time, whether it's right or wrong, whatever the topic is.
I want to go back to this, the point, when we see division, amongst each other. I mean, the issue oftentimes is we're being socialized differently.
Yeah.
It's the issue of socialization.
Yeah.
So for, a person where their parents may be, not have a college education.
Yeah.
And you have another family with both parents are college educated.
Yeah.
The children are going to be products of both households. They're going to have different views. A lot of times, we look at, our differences politically without looking at the root cause of that, which is there's a difference in socialization.
Yeah.
So I mentioned before, it's like, when you have one community, they may prioritize the issue of voting.
Yeah.
When another community can't afford to spend time on the conversation of voting, when there's an issue in their community dealing with addiction and other issues that they have to prioritize over those other issues.
Yeah.
So I think oftentimes we look at, our social positioning often dictates our differences. Those who have migrated over here, we're going to look at things differently than those who are indigenous to these lands. So, there it goes again, us problematizing something that these are natural occurrences, especially when we're not organized like that.
Yeah.
We don't have a community, we have communities, and then we come together and we interact, with each other. And we impose upon each other the standards of one community. Yeah. We don't have the same leaders. We don't oftentimes have the same, our leaders don't have the same ideas. Yeah. We have different masajid, and we frequent these places, which means we're being socialized, with the thoughts of this certain imam. So there's going to be some natural differences.
I want to say one thing about, I don't want to create the impression that only black people are poor in the United States.
Which, by the way, in the U.S., Bengalis, don't quote me, but I think Bengalis are below African Americans in the United States. In many states. So
you ever been to Hamtramck?
Huh?
You ever been to Hamtramck? It's believable. Yeah. But it's and those are beautiful people and beautiful communities, mashallah. But I want to create the impression that only black people are poor in America. That isn't the case. But I do find that in America, the reason that poverty is held in such contempt is because we believe in meritocracy. We believe that everybody has what they've worked for, and we believe everybody has a chance. I remember, funny story, after I embraced Islam and I was a student of Islam, I became a vendor. I had to sell, incense, oils. It's kind of like an African-American Muslim rite of passage. You know what I mean? It's rite of passage. You know what I'm saying? It's rite of passage. Incense, oils, textiles, fake jerseys. Right? And now we call them textiles. You know what I'm saying? Make it sound a little cleaner. You know what I mean? Bootleg Air Force One, Fugazi clothes, but we gonna call it textiles. You know what I'm saying? But I remember when I was doing that, man, I was like buoyed by this culture of rags to riches. Like when I would go and set up my little stall, I felt like I was a young industrialist in the making. I'm gonna be like Warren Buffett. I would tell people, say Warren Buffett started with pinball machines. This is a culture that we have. We believe it's possible. Yeah. So I was in Egypt. And I realized they don't have that plausibility structure. That's not what they believe one's trajectory can be.
Oh wow!
So there was a vendor, selling little Kleenex and little stuff like that. And I think I bought something from him. And I said to him in Arabic, just starting with humble beginnings. We going to the top. And he looked at me like, what? don't believe that. 'Cause that's not a part of his world. Like that's like a dead end. Like I'm on the street selling lighters, man. There's nothing that's gonna come from this.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I realized how indebted I was to this American idea of, oh, you can always make it. And you know, I mean, if I was selling peanuts, I would feel like just a matter of time before I'm the top peanut salesman in the Midwest. And then after that, the world. You know, this is a very American mythology.
Yeah, with the poverty, we have to look at, you know, it's not just the monetary resources, but it's also your personal resources, you know, your self-esteem. You know, you may have someone with $1 million. You compare two people with $1 million. One has, you know, more personal resources. His $1 million is going to look and feel different. You know, so we think about.
We talked about that earlier.
Islam has, you know, alhamdulillah, you know, in the, you know, Black community, you look at, it's enhanced our personal resources too. You know, you give a brother, you know, a little Arabic, oh man, that's going to, you know, contribute to that person's self-esteem. What it's doing is replacing some things that, you know, perhaps, you know, he should be afforded the opportunity to have the things that add to contribute to his personal self-esteem, such as a father's name. To inherit a father's name, right? To inherit a father's accomplishments. You know, so you look at slavery when the father couldn't even pass down his name. I mean, I go to places, I'm known by my father and his accomplishments. You know, many of my friends don't have that. That contributes to my personal resources. And my self-esteem and everything else. When you have people who don't have that and haven't been afforded that opportunity, they're looking for other things to you know, to reach that standard. You know, one of my teachers said, you know, I was talking about, you know, we were mentioning about one of the brothers, he didn't have a father. And so my teacher, he said, tell him Islam is his father, you know, and that's how it's been utilized. Even though this young man should have an opportunity to be able to point, look up, and receive affection from his father. He comes into, you know, Muslim community, still with those needs, you know, and, you know, alhamdulillah, Islam has, for many people, have been, you know, something that has added to or contributed to a person's personal resources.
What do you guys think about structured theology, perhaps in the form of movement, versus more organic? So, I mean, obviously, you talked about Chicago. Chicago's had home to many movements, including, you know, even just within the Arab community or the African American community and many other communities. There's structured theology and there isn't structured theology. And sometimes when you say
structured theology, what do you mean?
Structured theology in the sense that people are given everything from A to Z on how to live their life. They follow perhaps a particular book, a particular teacher. You know, they're tied to a movement somewhere else, right? Versus, you know, people just organically learning based off their local communities. You know, perhaps, and if you were to even be more specific, you can talk about even the WD Muhammad community or perhaps Nation Before. They give you a lot of tools to build up everything from A to Z, from your clothes to your communication, everything.
Mashallah. I see, there's certainly, you know, I think what I hear you, I'm going to put this into my own words and you can correct me if I'm not understanding you well. What is the advantage of having a kind of social movement that is a little more comprehensive in terms of the demands that it makes on you personally, in terms of your associations, where you go, how you dress, what you read, etc., and then having something that is a little more loose in terms of we're still together, but you have more space for your individual pursuits, individual interests, taste, etc. I think there's benefit to both, and there are cons to both.
Yeah.
Right. The benefit of having more cohesion is that we identify with each other closely. You know, Ibn Khaldun, the father of sociology, in his Muqaddimah, he says among groups, the dominant group will always be the group that has the most asabiyya, that has the most kind of an internal cohesion. I would translate asabiyya as an usness. And if you grew up, like I'm from Chicago, and if you grew up with gangs or street organizations, the organizations that could produce the most affection, meaning like, you know, they just identify with each other very, very strongly because they all wore certain colors or they all, you know, would co-opt the logos of certain sports teams, or, it produces something that can be very effective in the world. On the other hand, that almost always, if overdone, ends up feeling suffocating. People feel this, it's too, you know, and people begin to flee from that when it's overdone. And then that, of course, leads to you being ineffective. On the other hand, when you have too much individualism, where everybody's just doing their own thing, there's no accountability, no standards, no collective ethic. We can't do anything, man. And we can't even pick where we're going to eat lunch. And, you know, this is why the Prophet ﷺ said, if 3 or more Muslims are together, there should be an emir. Right? What? To preserve the unity of the collective. We can't, like what this very simple hadith is stating is that we can't afford to be divided. So if all of us are here and we'll say, look, we're going to go have lunch somewhere. It's actually not a good outcome for Zayn to say, well, I'm going to have halal guys. And Al-Abbas say, well, I'm going to have a burger. And Jihad say, I'm going to have Mexican. And then Tabari say, I'm going to no, somebody should be able to say, we're going to have halal guys today. And then maybe tomorrow we'll have Mexican. Right? And you might have to just deal with that. I mean, this is just an analogy. We can all have different food, but you get what I'm saying. Because when we go to that restaurant together, our presence, our influence is different than everybody going to their own individual choice of restaurant. You know?
How do you feel about it, Jihad? Because you've got people in your community that came out of very specific organized structure. I mean, some of the people that are much older, they grew up in a very structured environment. They've had training and they've operated with all these procedures and different things. And you have some remnants that are still there in the community.
The very systems that we and frameworks that we vilify were products of it. You know, our community, we're products of individualism. You know, whether we want to accept it or not. We talk about the West. You know, you go overseas, you figure out I'm a Westerner. You know, as soon as you pull out your hand sanitizer overseas, you realize you're a Westerner. You know, we're products of capitalism. And, you know, so you have like even in South LA, you take on the structures that you have close proximity to, but not only that, you take on the ways of the old guard. So we have, you know, our community, there's a lot of division. Which indicates individualism, indicates, you know, capitalism. Well, also we have an old guard there in South LA is gangs, you know. So it's de facto segregation. You have like one gang may go to one masjid, and another gang may go to another masjid.
Oh, really? They still have.
Yeah, we're in the, you know, 6-0, you know, but we're in a certain neighborhood. That neighborhood comes to the masjid. You go up the street, that neighborhood goes to the masjid. We look up, the masajid are divided even by gangs. Ways of the old guard is even creeped into our religious spaces, you know. So you know, a lot of these things, I think, you know, we oftentimes we don't look at, you know, root causes of our issues, so we don't know how to, you know, to deal with them.
But would a way to counter that be to build a movement to revive, you know, a different structure?
I think there's going to always be, you know, a movement.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, you're going to always have structures with the hierarchy and everything else. I'm a fan, you know, in the Quran, you know, I'm a product of an old guard constantly talking about the stories of the Nation of Islam.
Yeah.
You know, so of course I'm a product of that.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I've seen what has been accomplished in regards to a structured group.
Yeah.
You know, and then Allah mentions in the Quran, you know, Allah loves those who, you know, fight for his cause in ranks like Bunyanun Marsus, you know, this well-structured, you know, this well-structured building. That's my preference is, you know, to use what the old guard had went through as a case study. And you can't throw the baby, you know, away with the bathwater. You have to bring in some of the things that work, best practices, and see how we can organize again. We're kind of all over the place, primarily just reflecting, you know, the structures that we're in, which is, you know, individualism has definitely plagued us.
But unity should not be confused with uniformity. Right? We don't all have to do exactly the same thing to be together.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe we should just choose a food court where it's different. Everybody can still be together and we can all eat what we like to eat.
But how do you do that? Like for example, our households, you have everyone's in a different room. So we're divided by rooms, but also everyone's on a different app in these rooms.
On different devices.
Yeah, on a different device. We're products of that. You know, how do you address that during these times of where's the prevalence of individualism, you know? And it has to be approached with such a deliberateness. You know, we have to be deliberate about addressing these structures. Does everyone, first of all, you know, can everybody go against the way that they've been socialized? Does everyone want, for example, we come together as unified front. Do I really want Muslims living next door to me, right? To hear, not me and my wife, we don't argue. But
Me and mine do. and I love her a bit. I love it. Even when she yelling at me, I love her a bit.
Everybody's not ready to have a Muslim, you know, community, you know, because that means we're gonna be in each other's business.
Yeah.
You know, that's some accountability.
It's too much. It feels nice to be away from Muslims sometimes.
Yeah, so we're products of individualism. We have to first realize that. Are we ready to be deliberate and begin to let people become vulnerable in front of people, which takes courage?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Full Tabari back in this one as we wrapping up. We've crescendo. Now we coming over. We coming back. Yeah. Full Tabari back in this one. Full Tabari the commerce. That first 12 hours, man. He still ain't figured out this LeBron better than Jordan.
I mean, I think it's another level. Right. Just looking at, you know, some of the earlier like proto-Islamic groups, you know what I mean? Like you know, Moore Science Temple, the Nation of Islam, right? You know, there's some. I was talking to Dr. Shara Jackson about this years ago, and you know, he looked at me and he said, "We need that discipline that was in the nation."
Yeah,
right. There was a certain level of discipline that's actually it's a principle in the Quran that you have to hear and obey.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's been lost in every community.
That don't exist no more.
That's a big problem. So it's like, okay, they might not have had their theology like perfect, you know what I mean, but they had things that did give them that asabiya that Doom talks about, that togetherness, that usness, And so they were able to, to accomplish a lot of things. I mean, we produced that, the nation produced the Malcolm X. So there was something there that allowed that, and when you read his biography, like at the end, Alex Haley tells us that he kept saying, right? He was using the N-word, and he was saying, these fools destroyed this organization, right? With the petty beef and, falling out and stuff like that. He was expressing that frustration.
Yeah.
And so, I think there's lessons to be learned from all of that. There's lessons to be learned. Like, there's things that we have to get back. I mean, I read both of them, actually, right? It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
A lot of us are not ready to actually be like awesome community. Like, you know what I mean? Because now you have to, we're not saying that you have to be that to have unity, that you have to be uniform.
Yeah.
Everybody has to follow the same Aqidah, everybody has to follow the same madhab, everybody has to say, no, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, can we be together in the same rope, working towards the same objective?
Yeah.
We have a lot of work to do.
Now,
Subhanallah.
yeah. There was a good book by Zarina Grewal called "Islam is a Foreign Country." I don't know if you read that book.
I know Professor Grewal. I know
She covers all the different movements in the United States, all the different leaders, and all the different tractions they've built. And even from the immigrant community and other communities that have come, you can kind of see the benefits of them following a certain strand, and then when it falls off, But I think the struggle for us in the United States is just figuring out, like, where do we all go with this? Because now we have so many movements, so many groups, so many ideas, and we're like trying to figure out how do we come together now.
I think we need. I was recently disinvited. I won't say I was. I'm not gonna put that on the brothers. I wasn't invited to a conference that took place in Chicago. I wasn't invited as a speaker. We could attend, but we didn't want you as a speaker because some members, some of the the presenters, took issue with the fact that I had spoken at a Mawlid, right? A celebration of the Prophet ﷺ's birthday, and they said, if he speaks at Mawlids, he's a deviant. He's a mubtadi', right? He's an innovator, and we don't want to share the platform with him, and. I thought a lot about that. I thought a lot about that. And I said to myself, where does this come from? Right? Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that this idea of tahajjur an al-fasiq, like turning away from a deviant person, this is not a Salafi thing. Some people think it's a Salafi thing. This is something that exists in all exponents and expressions of Islam. Right? However, what I would urge people to look at is that the Prophet was a master, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of pedagogy. He was a master of tarbiyah. He was a master of rearing and raising people. And you will not find anybody that he turned away from, because he didn't shun people. I mean, that's undeniable. Like the man who was wearing a gold ring, or the 3 people that didn't go out for Tabuk, or people were shunned, but it always resulted in them wanting to get back in. The Prophet never shunned anyone, and it resulted in him distancing them. So one of the conditions of turning away from somebody or disinviting them, declaring your disassociation from them, is that it's supposed to result in them saying, well, what did I do? Let me get back in. In a pluralistic religious context like ours, it will never result in that. It will only result in disunity, strife, intramural fighting and bickering, splintering more and more, and the weakening of our resources. But when you have people that have studied Islam in very homogenous settings, right? They have studied Islam in Pakistan. They studied Islam in Saudi Arabia, studied Islam in Egypt, where something like that maybe makes a little more sense. We all have this thing, and if that person does that thing, we ostracize them. He out.
Yeah.
Until he gets his act together, he can come back.
Right.
It's mindless and stupid for a religious leader in America to adopt that modus operandi. You can't afford to behave like that. You must have an embrace of the vast array of expressions of Islam, because that's the kind of community you live in.
Yeah.
This isn't Pakistan, where everybody is Hanafi and everybody is Maturidi and they're all Chisti. It doesn't work like that. You're going to be in a community, some people are Shi'i, some people are Sunni. Some people celebrate Maulid, some people don't.
And most people don't even know what's going on half the time.
Most people don't even know what's going on half the time. So if you actually want to adopt an approach that is prophetic, you have to alter your approach to your situation. But I'm a digress. But I think a lot of this is that people are taking from religious scholars, and those religious scholars might be masters of the text, but I don't really think they understand our reality. They're not masters of the context. And I think in that they do a lot of damage. They do a lot of damage. And it takes a man, and I'm talking to the people in Chicago that put this conference together. Have y'all ever see this? Yeah, I'm talking to you. It takes a man to tell the sheikh, you are my sheikh, and I trust your scholarship, but I trust my judgment. You see, I trust my judgment because this is where I live. This is where I am trying to realize certain concrete objectives as a Muslim. And if you don't have that, then you twist it in the wind. You got somebody in Pakistan, somebody in Riyadh calling your shots. And it's a failure of leadership and it's a failure of manliness. Or womanliness or whatever
I
you
know
are.
that person too. I know the person in Pakistan. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair, Brother Ubaydullah. We appreciate you coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Alhamdulillah. It's been a great conversation. Yeah.
Inshallah.
We're putting IE on the map, coming from Chicago to San Bernardino. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. And I just want to say, man, shout out to Bazz, man, for putting this together, man. He's a brilliant host, a man that is, wears many hats. Want to just big up the Sahaba initiative, man. This work is a credit to our entire community, man. Alhamdulillah. I just want to tell y'all, keep going. Keep going, man. Keep going.
Definitely echo that. In regards to, sometimes we get down and in despair over the state of the Muslim community, but what you all are doing, this is hope. It brings hope. So, alhamdulillah, we winning.
Yeah,
we just don't. A lot of times we don't recognize the miracles right in front of us. So, alhamdulillah, with your we're confident. Just keep going and endure.
Inshallah.